Welcome. Welcome to another installment of The Stones Will Cry Out. You know, when Jesus came into Jerusalem that last time, and all the disciples were and followers were laying palm branches down on the ground, and as Jesus came in, I believe on a donkey, the people were crying out, "Hosanna in the highest, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And the Pharisees, you may not recall this part, the Pharisees were coming to Jesus going, "Tell him to be quiet. Tell him not to do that. I'm sure the Romans and Herodians will be after us." And Jesus turns to them and says, "If I tell them to be quiet, the stones will cry out." So this is another episode of The Stones Will Cry Out. And what that is people who need to say into the world what Jesus is doing in their lives in the past and in the present and their walk with him. That's something I call your own personal parable. We all have our own personal parable. When I looked it up in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it says that a parable is a story told by Christ to impart a moral or theological lesson. And so that's where we're at with this. We know that each one of us, after Pentecost, after our baptism, have the Holy Spirit in us. And since the Holy Spirit's in us, it needs to get out and express who Jesus is in the world. That's our personal parable. And it's my pleasure today to have my friend Ed Deacon here with me. Ed, good to see you.
Good morning.
Ed's name is Deacon. So although I'm Deacon Tom Burke here, and thank you for joining us, Ed's last name is Deacon, so he gets it by generation, and I get it by ordination, so to speak. So, but it's a pleasure being with you here, Ed, today. And I was hoping maybe we could start a little bit by you kind of talking to me about. We know each other. We're both parishioners at St. Joseph's in Cotterville, and that's one of the ways I know you. Also through the Encounter School of Ministry. But I wanted to have you maybe fill the people in a little bit, just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, that's great. I'm 53 years old. I'm married, have 3 beautiful children. Classify myself as a cradle Catholic. Grew up Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, and just really had a life just void of Jesus and God and all the interesting stuff that comes along with that. And now I don't, and I have a lot of fruit to bear, I think, from that experience.
How would you say, when you mentioned something in your statement here about that yourself, that even though you'd gone to Catholic grade school and high school and kind of had all the sacraments that many of us have, that your life was void of Jesus at the time? What was that like? Was it like you just didn't step through that door, or what was it like? You don't have to give me particulars about any wayward actions of your part. That's not what this is about. But what did that feel like?
In my world, it was just, I wasn't exposed to maybe those opportunities where that spiritual connection would be a possibility. It was more of just a mindset of, it was just a class, and the Bible was just a book with some really good stories. And Jesus was a pretty cool dude that did some interesting stuff, but I just never had that link between him being involved with me in the same capacity that he was with those people at his time. Like, it was just a disconnect and not so much a possibility.
So Jesus was somebody, but he wasn't real to you at the time.
No, it was just I had to have that renewal of mind to understand that he wants to be as present with us as he was, when he was physically here.
Oh, that's what I want to hear about. I want to hear about that renewal of mind stuff that went on with you that got you to where you are today.
Some of it would just be, unfortunately, a life void of him. It just bred, these areas, where whether the evil one was involved or just trying to do too much on my own. It just bred that, fear, that self-reliance, that pride, just stuff like that would just continue to strengthen myself and disconnect even farther from him. But eventually it got to be too much, and I cried out to him, and he was always there.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's if we could just encapsulate that, right? That if we cry out to him in our desperation, he's always there. Because that's the fear, right? The fear that we all have, and at some point in our spiritual life, that if we cry out to him, he won't be there.
Yeah.
That we have to rely on ourselves. That we can only go to him when something is really, really, really wrong, either because he doesn't care about the light stuff, or because we don't bother to allow him to care about the light stuff. So you had kind of a, it sounds like at some point you said, whatever I'm doing is not really working out for me and I need to try something else.
Yeah, it just became a point where physically I was just filled with, emotions of fear and anxiety, just depression, and it was on that trend, and it just was getting deeper and deeper. And
would you say that all kind of stemmed from your desire, and we all kind of have this, right? To the arrogance of doing, your desire to do it yourself, your desire to climb the mountain on your own, to go ahead and scale those heights and take an inventory of what you've done. Was that kind of where you were going?
Yeah, definitely. I was, as a gift, I think I'm self-motivated. I handled challenges fairly well. I like to accomplish things, so that all just fell in line with that aspect or side of my life. And God helps those who help themselves, right? So,
which isn't in the Bible, of course.
Right.
But it is kind of a theme that we carry
Right.
with us and stuff. So at some point you said, this is just not working out for me.
Yeah, just physically, the anxiety was just incredible, and I was just very, very unhappy, and just I had no tools to call upon anymore to get me from where I was to where I thought I needed to be.
When you say tools, you mean your own personal tools,
Definitely.
your intestinal sinew, your ability to
Yeah.
problem solve, your I know you're very analytical,
Yeah.
And your ability to see through and get clarity, that was all clouded.
Yeah, it was always, if I could just get this off my list, or if I could just achieve this, everything would be fine, and it just bred more and more of that lifestyle.
So at some point, you said, that's enough. How long ago was that? Where you said that old life is, I need to renew my mind.
It was probably around 2016, so 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
I crashed and burned.
And your kids are growing up. They're
Yeah.
in their teens, I guess, at this point, or
A little
adult,
younger, but
a little
yeah, they
younger.
were.
Okay. And you're working, and your wife's working. Things are going okay on that end, but you just used the term crash and burned.
Yeah.
We don't have to get too deep into it, but that was a crisis in your life.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it was unforeseeable, like how to get out. I just didn't know, and I had this moment where I felt peace because I knew that I couldn't do it anymore, and that someone else. I still didn't say I know God can fix this, but I just knew someone else was going to have to step in and fix me. And
Well, I'd like to stop for just a second there, because as speaking with me and someone who likes to do a lot of stuff on my own, and
Yeah.
the idea that somehow realizing that I can't do it is not a very comfortable place for most of us to be. But you said you discovered peace there. Could you describe that?
I'd given up, and I, in a good sense, to where I tried everything I could try. I saw nothing that was going to alleviate the pain and suffering, and I had been struggling for so long and trying for so long that it was just a relief. Yeah, I could just almost like lay back and let other things happen. And
how did that abandonment, and you said not initially to God, but how did that abandonment to caregivers, to other people who cared about you, how did that lead you to God?
Well, I think inherently I just knew I was going to try it. It's interesting because I didn't feel at the moment probably that was the answer, but I just felt, it's interesting that like when push comes to shove, that's where I went, but I wasn't knowingly going there thinking this is going to fix everything.
Oh, that's interesting. So what you're saying is, with no guarantee that that's the way to go, in your heart you intuitively knew that that was a safer place to go.
Yeah, it was just something inside me that I didn't acknowledge, externally, but it just happened, basically. I just reacted, and that's where my mind went and where my...
Looking back, when you say you reacted, what do you think you were reacting to?
Just desperation. I think I was just, honestly, saying it now, I still was trying to do how I wanted to do it,
But that was the start.
Yeah, definitely.
That was the start of what you've already characterized as the renewal of your mind. So let's kind of continue that if we can, because I'm really interested to see how you, for my benefit too, how I can discover how I can have a renewal of my mind by walking with you with it. So what happened after that?
I would describe it as, the typical, like maybe a Western approach to, what would have been classified as, mental illness or just anxiety and depression, that I think since I was allowing him in, that these people were put into my path. I had a beautiful counselor who fortunately was a faith-based Catholic woman, and she was just so compassionate, and really just kind of initially just allowed me to just tell her who I was and why I was there. And she, she didn't really have any of these preloaded, modules or maybe protocols on how to fix me. And she just kind of let it happen and put me on to some interesting people, some interesting books. And there it was. I almost really liked this. It was a day-by-day battle. It wasn't like a very transformative overnight kind of thing. So I definitely had moments of relief and renewal, but those moments would fade sometimes, and I'd go back into who I was. But I just noticed the periods of joy and happiness and freedom were becoming more frequent and longer in duration than the times void of God. And
well, I love the way you put that. It reminds me of someone who said his wife was dealing with physical therapy, and the physical therapist turned to her and said, "You're not going to see this get a lot better right away, but if you get 1% better a day, in 30 days you'll be 30% better." And you kind of saw that slow percentage of healing in you.
yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful stuff. I don't know what percentage you put on it as it went. It's it's quite a while ago. But then where did God enter into that? God entered into it in having the right therapist. I see that.
Sure.
And God certainly entered into it in her guidance. And really, what you said there was so important if we're going to walk with somebody, and that's the compassion of the therapist that you highlighted for us. But then where did you have that encounter that helped you renew your mind?
It's interesting the way he did it. I have some poignant moments, but I was still really just... Once I started to feel better, I still found myself coming back and trying to, if this worked for me and was providing relief or comfort, like I can do more, or I can learn more about it, which is great, that knowledge and that information, and it definitely helped me kind of calm a lot of the physical aspects of living this lifestyle, to where I could be in a state of calm and peace, and then my thoughts would become clearer, and I could focus my thoughts on what I wanted to focus on. It's a really good question. I mean, I have some stories, but unfortunately, like the day-to-day was just very subtle, and I found that's a way he works with, I think, a lot of us a lot of time, is when I cry out to him, even when I surrendered, I still in the back of my mind was praying for an overnight transformation. Like, I just wanted it all gone, and I wanted to be in his presence and full of joy and just everything to be fixed, right? But that was still there. But, you know, looking back, I can see the subtlety of the day-to-day, whether it was just my wife being, you know, very patient with me and, you know, never wavering in her support and getting me what I needed and allowing me to, you know, experience what I needed to experience. You know, I think more of that is, you know, he doesn't not ever answer you. It's just you have to be kind of in tune to, or just have a wide eye and an open ear to the subtleness of just somebody's words, or, you know, someone coming in your path is kind of really what I experienced.
So if I'm listening to you close enough, I hear that certainly you discovered that doing it on your own was not a fulfilling life for you, and that you got to a point where you wanted more, and you knew it wasn't from you, and that provided you some peace. And then what I've heard from you, let me know if I'm listening wrong, is that you were kind of saying Jesus was in it, even though I wasn't really knowing it was him all the time. I was crying out for help, and Jesus was in it, but not only in a therapist who might give me compassion, but also in the other people around me, like my wife. And Jesus was in it, working with me all along, even though my desire would be like to flip a switch. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. So where did that take you from there?
It just took me into this world of learning about my body physically, and then I inherently still, I find God in the creation of the body. If you just delve into the biology of the body and how it just knows how to heal itself if we get out of the way, you just cannot be overwhelmed knowing, you know, that he's involved in that, and just see the beauty of him and the physicalness of us and the intricacy and the amazing things that go on that we can't see or even comprehend. You know, there was a lot of that to get me to physically be calm, and then I could focus on more what I wanted to focus on. And then there was just knowledge of, you know, how he works, and then I could see physically all those components of him. And I just spent more and more time just thinking of him and becoming more of a friend instead of just someone calling him all the time, asking for help.
But I love what you're talking about, because there is a transformation of the mind when we go from he's an abstract person that I might go to him when I have help, to somebody who's actually there with me. You know, and what I think is so important to emphasize, what I'm hearing from you, is that God didn't change you. I mean, Ed, I know you, so I know you have a very inquisitive mind, that you're always trying to learn more, that God has put it on your heart to seek other things, and to seek not only the knowledge in a physical sense, but also in a spiritual sense. So God didn't turn that off of you. He made you wonderfully that way. And so he's not going to change us. I mean, I think that's one of the fears that we have when we're starting to enter into the first levels of discipleship, that what's the cost? What's the cost of dropping my net? As Peter dropped his net and followed Jesus, we start thinking, what's the cost? What's that going to be? And it sounds like he drew you through your own personality to get closer to him by you being a curious inquisitor.
Yeah, what I'm seeing after, you know, all the dust settles and I can kind of refocus again, is that there was this inherent, you know, desire as a child for certain things, you know, like I was always kind of interested in the supernatural, and that led me to talk to a few other people that were kind of involved in some of that stuff. And honestly, that's what led me to the Encounter School of Ministry. But it was just nice to have all that quieted, and him basically just revealing to me who I've always been, and then just saying it's okay to be that person, and then here's how we're gonna use all that, you know, that internal desire that you've always had, in a sense, for him. This is how we're gonna gonna work with that and through that, you know.
Is that what you mean when you talk about renewal of the mind?
I think that's what got me to an area where I was able to learn more and experience more and open more, and then my mind is continually being renewed. I think that's maybe not a side effect, but just an aspect of this transformation. It's been a huge component to everything, because you see things in a certain way, and then he reveals a little more of himself in certain things, and it just it's really powerful to see that, you know, to have these things you've seen all your life in a certain mindset, and then have him just reveal that this is, you know, and it's just a little bit at a time. It's just what you can handle, but it's the same world, but a different meaning, you know.
You said earlier that when you were growing up, Jesus was just a very interesting figure who did amazing things, and the Bible was just a book. What's Scripture like for you now?
It's something I definitely need to delve into a lot more, but it's interesting. It's been an area where it's just another connection for that companionship, or just it's like, you know, reading a story about a good friend you've always had, but you never knew all of his, you know, maybe everything that has happened to him, and that you can sit down and you know, relive some of the stuff he relived, and then beautifully realize that there's so much information in there for you, and so much liberation, and he's basically just laid this map out for you on how to navigate life, and how to be joyful and be with him.
Well, you had talked earlier, and if you don't mind me characterizing, it sounded like you were really kind of captured by what was going on in your life. You were imprisoned by your desire to make things right and to make things good for yourself, and that wasn't working out. What does that freedom look like now? I mean, many people, maybe not so many who will watch this, but many people in the world think freedom is really doing everything I want to do on my own. Freedom is really getting my own dignity out of what other people think of me. Freedom is what is really giving into each one of my passions until I discover the passion I want to chase after all the time. What does freedom mean for you?
It's really interesting, because what I found is, you know, that peace I was seeking, you know, through all my actions, you know, to pay bills, to have all the jobs done, whatever it was, that peace I was seeking is inherently what he provides. And all those, you know, all the monetary desires, that's all just to create peace. Like that, to me, that's not to have your bills paid. It can be a blessing, but the desire I had for that was really just this inherent desire for him, but not knowing that. And now what I'm experiencing is, you can still have those bills, you can still have that world there, but it just doesn't affect you. As you know, it's almost, he's taken all my burdens and eliminated a lot of them, and some of them he's even converted to blessings, you know.
Can you give me any examples of how that, you've talked a little bit about this, and I love it, because it is the way of the disciples. I think if you just put up on the wall and you said, this is what I want you to do, and follow Christ, you'll give up your business, you'll go away from your family, you won't have your 401k anymore, you'll just go with him. Many people would say, that's why I don't enter. That's why I don't enter into the peace of Christ, or enter into his inner circle with him, even though he's calling me. But you're telling me something different. Can you describe that more for me?
Yeah, it's more like he'll take and he'll shed all these things that maybe provide you with temporary happiness right now. But there's some things he'll leave for you, and that's okay. But he's just gonna clean up and just clarify what's important. He's going to eliminate portions of your life that you just don't need. You think you need, but you don't need. And then he's just going to expose you to just this just amazing joy-filled areas. And if I could just say one word, it's just liberation. He just wants, with him, you know, people think if I give my life to him, if I pray to him, if I sacrifice, that, you know, I'm this pauper in the presence of a king, that I'll be just admonished and overruled and tyrannical. But it's anything but that. He's just taken all that I've given him, and he's even given me back tenfold, or he's just wiped that stuff away. And then I just realized that I just don't need that, you know, and that was a cause of a problem or anxiety or stress. And he's just eliminating the lifestyle that we're almost kind of sold as needing, but it's fruitless, you know.
Well, before we came on together, you said something about that recently you reflected that what you've undergone is kind of like the parable about the talents.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So, you know, through the renewal of my mind and in this beautiful school of counter ministry, we're taught, you know, our identity and who we're from, kind of our lineage. And I was thinking about this morning, like...
Can I interrupt you just a
Sure.
little bit so that people here listening, we've said Encounter School of Ministry a couple times here. The Encounter School of Ministry is out of Brighton, Michigan. It has an online program, and they're actually bringing it to St. Louis here, St. Louis Encounter School of Ministry in the fall of 2024. But that Encounter School of Ministry advertises and produces disciples by teaching, equipping, and activating people to do what the disciples did, which was proclaim the gospel and heal the sick, drive out demons, and things like that. Not a lot of demon driving out because we don't do exorcisms. That's ridiculous. Only people who are ordained and have that gift from the archdiocese can do that exorcism. But having said that, what has that meant for you? You've said the Encounter Ministry has helped you. Where are you at now?
So, you know, to answer the question, it was, you know, I have this understanding now of who I am, who created me, all that beautiful, all the tools that come with that. And what that's given to me is, you know, this renewal of the mind, and it's taken these daydreams that I've had in the past, and it's kind of wiped that away. And I truly realized that because that's where we come from, that all of us inherently are created to do great things and to become saints. Like, yeah, every one of us. Like, I used to think if I was a good guy and I paid all my bills and raised some good kids, that, you know, that was enough. But it's not, and it's inherently in us. And I used to think that the saints were just a select few that, you know, maybe had this different look of life and they were gifted with these talents. But I know now that it's not a daydream anymore, and I know that I inherently am one of those people. And I feel that we're all given those 5 talents, you know, like God doesn't limit us. So we're all given 5 talents, and I think that it's not a daydream anymore in my mind. It's a very real, it's something that's tangible in my mind, that it's just a matter of me allowing Him more time in my life, allowing me to just surrender more to Him and to step out in those times when He's calling me to. And of course I don't want to, but I just do.
What do you mean by He's calling you to and you don't want to?
Well, just that, I always say, like, that uncomfortable area. Like, I know so much now from my previous life of avoiding things due to fear and stress, that when I hear something from someone who I look up to, and they say, "You'd be really good at this, Ed." And I said, my initial is like, no, that's not me. But I know now inherently when someone, especially from the spiritual side or religious side of my life, says, "You'd be really good at this," or "I'd like for you to do this," like, "Hey, how about you come and sit for a little while and we'll talk, you know, and we'll put this on YouTube or whatever." And And inherently I was just like, no, that's not me. I'm not good at that. But I know now that he's with me. He's calling me out, and just do it. You know, just give more to him, I guess. And he's never let me down, and it's always bearing great fruit. You know.
If you encountered somebody that was like another Ed Deacon in 2016, what would you say to them?
I'd have a lot to say, fortunately, but I would inherently just have compassion and just assimilate myself to them, you know, and just connect with them, saying, I've been there. I know exactly, I feel like I know exactly what you're feeling, and then just very quickly bring them through my story, and then bring them, you know, ultimately to that I heard this week in class, that, you know, whatever you're going through, God has a solution for. Yeah. And hopefully just that be the end point, you know, that be the solution.
And what I've heard from you, if I've been listening close enough, is you've talked about, you know, Jesus brought me along through the compassion of others. I got to see another way of life, and he brought me slowly along. And there wasn't when you use the word solution, it's more like an avenue and a companionship. You use the word companionship in your conversation today. I'd love to hear just a little bit more about that if you'd be giving me more time, because the idea of companioning Jesus for many of us is foreign. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. Many people think, well, I can go ahead and pray to God, and I can go ahead and fast during Lent, or I can go ahead and try to do the best I can with the commandments. And then occasionally when things get really, really bad and I feel totally disconnected, I might once a year go to the sacrament of reconciliation or turn my sins over to God. But that doesn't, the way I did, the person I just described, and I've been that person before, that person I just described isn't really companioning Jesus, is he? Okay. So tell me what that means to companion Jesus.
Well, interestingly enough, what I've learned, and I love, you know, the analytical side of myself, is I always can take things and I bounce them off certain things, and one of them is I always go back to nature, like how do things work in nature? And then I was thinking one day, like, you know, what is God? Like, what is unconditional love? So I thought, well, God's not going to create a relationship with me, and then he's not going to create a relationship that's much different between you and I. So I thought, like, through my marriage, like, what is the desire of my wife? And what I've unfortunately found out later on is, you know, we all just desire time with. And it's really not, sure, what we do does affect, you know, maybe the elevation of the emotion of certain things, but generally in most relationships, it's just time together. It's just sitting together, whether it's watching a movie. But that has to be consensual. It has to be agreed upon. So what I found is, you know, Jesus is here right now, but I have to say yes to him. You know, he's never going to force himself on me. He's never going to make me do anything I don't want to do. So what I conceptualized was that it's just very simple. It's just a few minutes here, a few minutes there. It's just me saying, yes, you can have this part, or I want to see you in this part of my life. Maybe it's just, and it's like other things where you don't want to be the one talking all the time. Like, you don't want to be that person calling someone saying, hey, I've got this problem again. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? You know, although he wants and desires that, I feel that that shouldn't be the crux of your relationship. Like, and I found it's just turning to him, inviting him in, giving him time to speak. And he definitely wants to hear what's on my heart. Even though he knows it, he still wants to hear it. He wants to know my desires. But ultimately, it's just time together. It's just focus on one another. It's just eye to eye. And that's really all he desires. And then once you surrender that, then he can walk to the door, and then he can just pour out these graces that are amazing.
So his action in that intimacy you share with him, in these times where you come and you talk to him about what's on his heart for you, and how has that affected your world, how you interact with other people?
Well, it's definitely helped me to, with my personal relationships that I've had for years, understanding that, especially in my marriage, I definitely see where that's my desire of my wife, is just, she just wants to tell me about her day, That's just it. And she just wants me there. She doesn't expect, there's great if there's input from my side of it, but I just realize sometimes it's just, especially when people are in dire straits or in need of someone, it's just sitting and just letting them talk and not really even expounding any of your, I feel compelled sometimes to counsel people, but I know sometimes that it's just better to, I can kind of tell when people just want to unload or, just vent and just be there. And that's what he does a lot of times.
Well, of course, if you bring yourself into that, you're bringing Jesus with you and you're letting him do that ministry. As a deacon, we learn that that's the ministry of presence. And I love that you've discovered that ministry of presence, to be present to someone else, to bring Christ with them just by listening. That's wonderful stuff. So where would you like this? Where would you like this relationship that you have with Christ that you're talking about? That's intimate. That you companion him, and you're developing a new renewal of the mind as you go. If you had your druthers, where would you like it to go?
That's a great question. Now I desire that, when people see me, that's who they see. I just desire, him to influence others like he does me. I desire to just be an extension of him, and to just right a lot of wrongs, and just influence this world with what he wants to influence the world with.
I think that's a good place for us to end. I keep thinking of the scripture passage that Jesus says, ask and you'll receive, seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be open to you. And in Luke's gospel anyway, he ends up by saying, ye who know how to give, you who are wicked know how to give good things to your children, how much more will the God the Father give the Holy Spirit to those who ask him? So as we finish up, I want to thank you so much for showing us a pathway through intimacy with Christ, a pathway to ask and seek and find. Thank you very much. God bless you, Deacon.
Thanks for having me.
Please join us again for another episode of The Stones Will Cry Out, and we'll hear where someone else is telling their personal parable into the world and showing other people a path to Christ. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.